Hi, my name is Connor Riley, and on today's Connor in Coverage, we're going to be talking about the best player on the best team in the country. And no, that's not Heisman Trophy contending quarterback Stetson Bennett, though he was also excellent this weekend for Georgia. Our first winner this week would be none other than Todd Monken. The Georgia offensive coordinator, who many Georgia fans already consider to be the best offensive coordinator they've ever had in their entire lives, was deep in his bag of tricks right away this week for Georgia. Consider his opening touchdown drive, capped off by an end-around reverse to Brock Bowers, who we'll get into later in tonight's show. The Georgia offense rolled up 547 yards of offense and scored 48 points in the afternoon. And if Georgia hadn't pulled Stetson Bennett midway through the third quarter, it could have been a lot higher than that.
Coach, how would you describe the game that Coach Monken called today?
Great. I mean, he was aggressive. He did a good job calling it. He puts together a good game plan. He'll tell you himself, he's got a great offensive staff. And he's got guys that are in the room that have coached in the SEC, that understand the SEC. You know, the addition of Searles, B-Mac, Bobo, I mean, those guys come up with game plan things. They know these teams. They know the personnel of these teams. So it really helps when you have a good game plan and you actually have people that can execute it because they have experience. I mean, it's hard to defend a quarterback that can check things, make throws, has weapons, and then he can run on top of it. So, I mean, we've got to keep getting better, and we got to execute at a high level. But the biggest thing for them, if our offense is not good for place.
Bowers was magnificent on Saturday, and Monken is a big reason why. While Bowers is no doubt an incredible athlete, Todd Monken does an excellent job of putting him consistently in positions where he can take advantage of matchups, whether it be his speed on the end around or putting him in a one-on-one situation outside to haul in his second touchdown pass of the day. He schemes up players to get open and make big-time plays time and time again, as we saw on Saturday. Even Stetson Bennett ran in a rushing touchdown, his third of the season, using his legs to move the ball for this offense. Many of the red zone issues that plagued this team a week ago seem to be gone now, and Todd Monken is a big reason why that is the case. He's a perfectionist and demands elite execution at all times, and for a team that was missing leading wide receiver A.D. Mitchell on Saturday, Monken saw exactly what he needed to do from this Georgia offense, who once again looked like one of the best units in the country, if not the overall best offense out there. Our first loser is the Georgia late game defense. Now, Georgia's defense as a whole was excellent on Saturday. Forced 3 turnovers, held South Carolina to 306 total yards of offense, and only gave up 7 points. But as Nolan Smith is going to explain to you here, those 7 points matter, even if it did come in the final minutes of a 48-7 win for Georgia, the largest in the history of the 75 meetings between South Carolina and Georgia.
You guys played so well to start this season.
If you in, you a starter. They did score, so no matter what, they scored. We had points on the board, and our job is don't let nobody in our end zone. If you're on the field, you a starter. A lot of people at Georgia know that saying, so I don't want you to say that ever again.
I will not.
They scored, so we got to chop. You know, we got to do a better job and communicate on the sideline. And when guys go in, like I said, they're starters, but we got to make sure no one gets in our end zone.
What is it?
Through 3 games, Georgia's defense has given up just 10 points, and that touchdown being the first score they've allowed all season. They're first in the country in scoring defense and have forced 6 turnovers. Now, if you want to pick nits, they still only have 1 sack to this point in the season. Perhaps that's why Kirby Smart used his press conference on Saturday to stress the importance of getting young players like Bear Alexander and Marvin Jones Jr. some key reps for this team so that they can have an impact for this defense.
I thought they played hard. You know, they affected the passer, but we're not where we need to be. We have 2 young players who can help us. They can't help us until they go against our one offensive line about 1,000 more reps. And I can't get 1,000 reps in 2 weeks. So we have to get them ready faster because we don't have the depth there that we've had. They played really hard today, and we had to get Bill Norton in there for snaps, Bear, Christian Miller.
With the way Georgia's offense is playing, odds are it's going to find itself in situations like it did on Saturday once again. That was the case last season as well. And if Georgia's going to see these guys make big plays, it's going to be an encouraging sign for the future of this defense. Because at some point, the Bear Alexanders, the Marvin Jones, even the Jalen Walkers of the world are going to fill those shoes that were once occupied not just by Nolan Smith, but Nakobe Dean and so many others before them. Those late game reps matter not just in the course of the spread or the over-under, but to this team and to the development of these players. It's a big reason why Georgia has been able to uphold the standard that you've seen them uphold on the defensive side of the ball, even with the names and faces changing. Our next winner is another tight end, and that would be Oscar Delph. While Brock Bowers had 3 touchdown catches on Saturday, perhaps the most interesting one was the one caught by Delph, who hauled in his first career pass, a 28-yarder from Carson Beck. was Georgia's final touchdown on the afternoon, and it meant a lot not just to Delph, but to his teammates as well.
Oh, I mean, I saw the play call and I was just hoping for it, and then they were in a good defense for it, and Carson threw it up, and I jumped up in the air, was just super excited for him.
The touchdown for Delph was a not-so-subtle jab by Kirby Smart thrown at Shane Beamer, in my estimation. Delph was a heavily recruited tight end target for South Carolina last year, and the Gamecocks made a very public push to land him. Yet ultimately, even with Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington on the roster, Delph himself ended up signing with Georgia, and that looks like it's going to be a wise move for him. Even though he's buried a little bit right now behind Bowers and Washington, he's still going to play a key role for this Georgia team this year, and as we saw on Saturday, have a chance to make some plays for this team. And when ultimately Bowers and Washington move on to the NFL, which they do, Delph will no doubt be ready to step into their shoes and make similar type plays. It was an encouraging start for Delph this Saturday, and he looks to make play after play for this season for this team, even if it does come in late game situations. And it's a reminder of the importance of recruiting to go out there and land guys that would be starting for South Carolina, like Oscar Delph, and have them as a backup making key plays in the fourth quarter of a blowout. Our next loser, well, that's Florida's passing offense. We mentioned Carson Beck earlier, who threw the touchdown pass to Oscar Delph. He's got 2 touchdown passes on the season and hasn't turned the ball over and has looked pretty good in his backup duty for Georgia so far this year. Anthony Richardson, Florida's starting quarterback by comparison, still doesn't have a touchdown pass through the first 3 games of the season. And he's thrown 4 interceptions to this point. Florida's one of the only teams in the country that has not had a touchdown pass through the first 3 games. The other team that hasn't accomplished that feat was South Florida, who Florida themselves went toe-to-toe with on Saturday night. The Gators needed a late botched hold and a shanked 49-yard field goal attempt that only just barely missed to avoid overtime against South Florida, one of the worst teams in the FBS in recent seasons. It's a troubling sign for a Florida team that is still ranked, though largely based off their Week 1 win against Utah. Richardson struggled yet again on Saturday night, and this offense has looked really worrying for the past couple of weeks for the Gators. That's not what you want to hear having to go on the road and play at Tennessee this weekend, where College game day will be. It's a matchup between 2 ranked teams, and Georgia figures to learn a lot about 2 potential challengers to them in the SEC East. Florida and Tennessee have as much talent as anyone sans Georgia in the East and have a good chance of making a push to potentially challenge Georgia here. But if Florida is going to be the team that does that, their passing offense is going to have to be a lot better than they've shown in the early part of the season and get much improved by the time they actually play Georgia on October 29th down there in Jacksonville, Florida. Our last winner is Malachi Starks. Lost in the offensive explosion was how this defense once again played. Starks had another interception, his second of the year, easily baiting Spencer Rattler into an interception there and having a pretty impressive return. He didn't go full Keely Ringo on the play, but Kirby Smart liked once again what he saw from his freshman safety.
Yeah, what about it?
No, just your view
He
of it.
did a good job. The quarterback threw it right to him. He should pick it, right? he played the wheel route. He kept his eyes in the right spot, and he made a play and had a pretty good return, too. He's a good athlete.
Starks wasn't the only safety to make a play on Saturday, as Dan Jackson himself came down with an interception in the win for Georgia. Of the 6 turnovers forced so far by Georgia this year, 5 of them have come from the safety position. Starks' 2 interceptions, a forced fumble against Samford and the interception for Jackson, and then of course Chris Smith's interception against Oregon. I told my dad in the preseason that Georgia had a freshman safety that they really liked in Malachi Starks. He was a little cautious and wanted to see what the player would do because, being the elder that he is, wants to see someone do something before actually anointing them. Well, when we talked on Sunday, he couldn't stop raving about the job that Starks has done so far and impressions that he has made on my dad. And if my dad can recognize the kind of player that Starks is, safe to say a lot of other people out there in the football world can as well. We mentioned Bowers, and we're going to touch on him a little bit more later here, but for the second year in a row, it looks like Georgia in his previous recruiting class has landed not just one of the best freshmen in the country, but one of the best all-around players. Now, Starks is going to make his fair share of mistakes, comes with being both a safety and a freshman there, but his future is incredibly bright. And the fact that he has already had 2 starts and 2 interceptions in his first 3 career games on a team like Georgia, currently the number 1 team in the country, says quite a bit about how bright Starks' future is for this team. Before we get into our interview medley, hearing from Kirby Smart, Nolan Smith, Stetson Bennett, and Brock Bowers, we're going to try out a new segment here. It's called The Deep Shot. sort of a one big take from this past week and a larger scale view of where Georgia is within the season. Now, the easy one might be to say that this Georgia team is better than it was a season ago, or that it is on par with 2019 LSU or 2020 Alabama. But I want to focus a little bit here on Brock Bowers. If you're making a list of the best players to play for Kirby Smart in his time at Georgia, you've got plenty to choose from. There's individual efforts like George Pickens, Trayvon Walker, who has the accolade of being the #1 overall pick in this past draft, key leaders like Jordan Davis and Andrew Thomas, who were key players from day one, and quarterbacks like Jake Fromm and Stetson Bennett. But I don't know how many of them are truly better playing football than Brock Bowers. Bowers was sensational on Saturday, catching 5 passes for 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. The fact that it might not even be his best game at Georgia says just how much he's already accomplished. He's only played 18 games in his career and is 3 games into his sophomore season. He can do just about everything for Georgia, as he did on Saturday. Skied over a defender for his first touchdown catch of the season, took an end around to score early in the game for Georgia. He ran through the South Carolina defense, juking out multiple defenders, and even confusing his own wide receiver, Dylan Bell, so much to the point that when Bell didn't have the ball in his hands, he looked to the sky, only realized that Bowers was running right at him on his way to the end zone. Bowers is easily one of the most incredible talents I've gotten to see in my time covering Georgia, and if you're making a list of the best individual players that Georgia has had in recent years, Bowers ranks really high up there. It might not just be among Georgia players either. There's a good chance when it's all said and done, Bowers might just be one of the best players in recent college memory, as Greg McElroy outlines right here. Bowers is clearly a singular talent and good enough at winning the Heisman Trophy, and while he may not get the ultimate statistical production, Saturday was his first 100-yard receiving game of the season, he's going to be clearly a factor each and every week for this Georgia team. Even though he only had 5 catches for 95 yards in his first 2 games of the year, there's a certain gravity that he brings to this offense. Teams have to know where he is at all points in time. And even that still might not be enough to slow him down. And what Bowers does for the rest of this offense opens everything else up, as Kirby Smart explains right here.
I don't even know his numbers. I know he looked fast running down that field. So what numbers did he have? Because the thing about Brock that's so hard you don't get to measure is the amount of tension he draws. 121, whatever that is, yards, 5 for 5. But 3 or 4 of those plays that Brock made, there were people blocking down the field, elite blocking down the field. So Darnell Washington, on one of the little crack screens we run, pins a guy, and the holes are created through displacement, not just blocking. Darnell displaces people. So I think Brock would be the first one to tell you that his success comes from a lot of perimeter and things like that, touches that other guys make great blocks on. Marcus Rosen had 2 or 3, the selflessness of this group. Now the play he made in the corner of the end zone, nobody blocked for him on that one, because that was a elite catch, and the run after catch on the play action. But again, the play action play he made in the second half was set up by the run. If you run the ball 2 or 3 times, those safeties are coming down and he's running by you. But he's a special player, and I don't know that I've been around somebody that works as hard as he and Darnell do in practice.
I think Bowers is easily a top 5 player to play for Kirby Smart. And he's not number 5. And by the time he finishes his career and goes on to be a first-round draft pick, I think he might end up being the best player to ever play for Kirby Smart. A quite large achievement given some of the players he's already had come through the University of Georgia. And now our interview medley. Hear from Nolan Smith, Kirby Smart, Stetson Bennett, Brock Bowers, and more, all talking about the big win over South Carolina on Saturday. And after that, we'll do a short little Q&A to wrap things up and look ahead to Kent State, as well as the rest of the college football season. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Connor Riley.
How has the standard, if at all, evolved over your time in Georgia? Your players referencing so much and talking about the importance of playing up to it.
I don't know that it's evolved. I mean, Nick Chubb and Sony talked about it all the time. Lorenzo Carter, Davin Bellamy, those guys, they all they bought into it. The first year, I wouldn't say they bought into it because it was really, really hard, and practices were really, really hard, and I don't know that they reaped the rewards from it. And then from then on, they've kind of bought into, hey, this is who we are, this is how we're going to do things, and it's just kind of the way that we do them. And they sell that to each other. They sell that to the younger players so that we don't have to. If you do that, you can get better, but please don't mistake that for thinking that we have the best practices in the world. We have not always had the best practices in the world. Our kids believe in practice paying off in the game, though. I told them before the game, And right before we came out, I said, there's a muscle we haven't used. And the muscle that we have not flexed is the composure muscle. And I had Branson Robinson stand up in front of the group and say, this is what our composure muscle looks like. So if your composure muscle looks like Branson Robinson, there's a good chance that you need to flex it. I don't know if you've seen Branson's arm. And we flexed it because we had some things, go wrong, not bad wrong, but we gave up some plays and we responded from it.
Do you have a favorite touchdown from today, one that you felt the best after?
I mean, the first one felt good just because first one of the year, and just having all the dudes there with me. But they all felt good. The long one and the fade both felt good.
Did you know coming into today you were going to have this type of performance, play that well, make this kind of plays?
I mean, you never really know, but I just came out and was kind of playing the game like I did the last 2 games too. So I mean, sometimes it works out that way, I guess.
How fun is it for you to play in this offense where they seem to try to get the ball in their hands in creative ways? In creative ways, they try to get the ball.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Like every week, Monk puts in something new. I mean, he makes up new stuff off the stuff we ran last week. So it's always fun.
Do you expect that football fans started leaving, and that what were you guys thinking? I mean, did you expect it to be this easy? And you kind of took it. I mean, at halftime, you kind of took the momentum and everything out of there.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of had the plan to come in and just come out fast, and I mean, just try to make the fans is not really a factor in the game. So we're just playing people across from us.
Is this Georgia defense better than last year? What goes through your mind when you hear that question?
I mean, it frustrates me, honestly, just because, these guys 10 and 2 work really hard, and they don't work hard to be like Nakobe Dean and the other guys that were here last year. They work hard to be themselves, and that's one thing I tell every player. Go out there and be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else.
Did you come up with that? Did you come up with the Rattler nickname? Where did that come from?
No, that's our must. One of our musts every week. We have 5 musts that we must do on defense, and that was one of them.
How much are y'all working every week, every day to put the shadow of last year's defense behind you? How much of an emphasis is that throughout the week?
I mean, we work every day no matter what. That's what the good thing about playing defense at Georgia. You're going to work, we're going to have musts, we always going to have things to fix, and we're going to go see the doctor on Monday to see what we did bad this game.
What's your thoughts on Brock, man?
Brock Bowers, like I just told somebody else, take a time ball. You never know when he's going to go off. Got to be prepared for it as his teammates, because when he does, man, it's exciting.
What areas do you see this offense clicking better than you've ever seen it at Georgia before?
I think in terms of the communication. I think the level of communication has been really stellar. That starts with, Stetson, myself. Just getting guys on the right page and making sure everyone knows their assignments.
What is your game plan for your second year as a starter? What are you trying to work on? What are you trying to get better at? Where are you critiquing yourself?
Perfection, to be honest. Thank you. Perfection. I had 2 plays I messed up today, and honestly, that's probably going to bother me for the rest of the weekend. So I think for me, it's perfection. I know in the grand scheme of things, 50, 60 snaps, 2 plays isn't a lot, but at least for me, those type of things bother me. So my thing is always chase perfection.
I noticed guys always getting guys better. I think on one of Brock's touchdowns, you and Tate were still talking about something maybe you might have missed. You remember that play? Can you walk me through that? What's going on there?
I'm taking responsibility for it. It's on me. That's all I have to say on that. It's on me.
How fun is this right now, man? Saturdays are supposed to be the reward, right?
Yeah. I think it's a roller coaster. You work so hard during the week, going in, pounding, being physical, running, conditioning, all of those things throughout the week, preparing, watching extra film. And, you get to Saturday and, it's just time to really just enjoy that moment with your brother, because you put the work in already. So honestly, it's one of those things where it kind of takes the relief off of you, man. You just get to go and play.
What do you think?
Do you mean pitch? No, I mean, I don't know. I yell at him a little bit.
How impressed are you with Brock today?
I don't know. Not really.
Just so there.
Yeah. I mean, we saw it last year, and it's Brock.
How often do you go into your second read or your first reads getting open?
Depends on the play, and it depends on the coverage. But usually I can tell if I'm going to have to move on quick, depending on what the defense is taking.
Yeah, it just
you guys have put on film already. You're going to quick pass, you're going to go to the outside. These guys are still getting open.
We got good players, and they know what we're doing. And it's tough. It's tough to play defense because they got to react, and we know what we're doing. So we got players like this and a coach like Monk. Just get the ball.
Do they have any special significance to you that you grandfather played here as well?
Yeah, it did. I'm glad I ran one in. That was pretty cool.
All right, and welcome in everybody. We've just had Connor and coverage, the sort of pre-recorded show wrap up, and now we're going to answer your questions. Fresh off Georgia's 48-7 win over South Carolina this past weekend, another very strong effort for this Georgia team. I thought that Georgia would be able to get after it, really do some nice things offensively, and they absolutely did. I thought Brock Bowers was due to have a big game. He goes out there and does that. The defense didn't necessarily get the sacks that you wanted to see, but they clearly pressured Spencer Rattler. That was an issue for him all afternoon. They get the turnovers again, 3 interceptions on the day. All in all, there's not much you can say more than this is just a dominant team, pretty clearly the best team in the country, stacking, I think, 3 really strong performances back-to-back to start the season. And, if you're a Georgia fan, that was an awesome win this past week, but now Kent State at home, noon kickoff. If you're actually trying to watch this game from home, you're going to have to jump through a little bit of hurdles. It is not going to be on traditional television. It's going to be on SEC Network Plus. I'll walk you guys through how to get that later in the week. If you have SEC Network, you do have access to SEC Network Plus, but you're going to have to stream this game, and I understand that can be an issue for some people out there. So a small letdown, and even then, looking at the schedule, the month of October, at Missouri, that's a bad Missouri team that lost 40-6 to Kansas State. Auburn got absolutely routed this week at home by Penn State, and then Vanderbilt, who I will admit actually might not be the worst team in the SEC this year. That was a nice win over Northern Illinois yesterday. But those next 4 games for Georgia, really, you're not going to learn anything new about this team. And so, as exciting as yesterday was, you're probably waiting to the Florida game to have another opponent of at least South Carolina's caliber, in my opinion. And we'll see how good this Florida team is. They take on Tennessee this week. And as I mentioned in the show, Carson Beck has more touchdown passes than Anthony Richardson does at this point. And Carson Beck has played a fraction of the snaps that Richardson has. So that is definitely going to be something to watch and monitor going forward, especially with Florida and Tennessee playing this week. And at game day shouldn't be going to Knoxville. It should be going to Kansas Duke. Celebrate 2 unbeaten teams that have never, I believe, been on College game day. Celebrate that instead of, the 3rd and 5th best teams in the SEC East. So let's fire up some questions, see what you got. This is probably a pretty popular one. Do you think Georgia is the new Alabama? Got to win 3 titles first before you get there, because Clemson has won multiple national titles in a 2-year run, and I think there are a lot of people interested in sort of seeing what this next stage looks like for Dabo Swinney and the Tigers there. So before crowning the whole new Alabama, I think Georgia's got to win more national championships. But from a week in, week out dominance standpoint, this feels a lot like where Alabama was in the early 2010s. Ironically, when Kirby Smart was there, they were just mowing teams down, overwhelming them with talent, and in this case, scheme as well, with I think what Todd Monken has done. I thought he called an outstanding game on Saturday, and I think he only continues to do so in this defense. Well, maybe not as impactful as the 2021 one was in terms of, negative plays, turnovers, et cetera, things like that. Reminds me a lot of that 2019 defense that was elite at not giving up big plays, keeping defense or opposing offenses in front of them, and then really making them drive the field. We've seen Oregon, we've seen South Carolina, hit some plays occasionally, maybe 1 or 2 over the course of the game, but really not be able to do much, at least with first-team offenses inside Georgia's part of the field there. And so to get that kind of defensive production from a defense that is still this young, you heard Kirby Smart talk about it, they're trying to get a lot of young guys more reps and more snaps there. I think it's a very encouraging start to the season, especially when you have guys like Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith who are still making impacts for this team. Let's see. Yes, ESPN +2 for the game this weekend will be SEC Network Plus, ESPN Plus. So if you have one or both of those, you will be able to watch the Georgia game. Let's see. Yes, Jerry Dogs fan. We made this joke in the press box yesterday. This is probably as good as it has ever been for Georgia in terms of what they are doing, style of play, and really asserting themselves as the best team in the country. I know there was a time in the early 80s when Herschel Walker was obviously here. They win the title in 80. I think they only lose 1 or 2 games in 81, and then they obviously go back to the national title game in 1982. That's probably the only time that really rivals where Georgia is at right now. But I mean, certainly in my lifetime, Georgia has never played this well over a run of a season plus. And so to get that at this point in time, I think Georgia fans actually are doing a good job for the most part of recognizing it and enjoying just how fun it is to go out there and just beat around. Oregon and South Carolina are talented teams. Oregon really picked up a big win yesterday over BYU at home and is a top 15 team in the country and a team that I think can very well win the Pac-12 this season. So for Georgia to get there and have that kind of win under its belt and Oregon to come out and help them like that, I think shows just where this Georgia ceiling is. And I think the fan base, for the most part, has done a very good job of embracing, just how truly special this time is to be a Georgia fan. Let's see. And this is a good point because Nolan Smith sort of touched on this. Georgia's not going to be the new Bama. They're going to be the first Georgia. They're going to be a new Georgia. This is going to be a Georgia that even I would say from those first Saban teams that were winning when Kirby was the DC there, this Georgia team has a distinctly different feel to it, especially with Todd Monken and what he has done on the offensive side of the ball there. Let's see. Scotty G, I felt okay about saying Mississippi State, but after LSU really got them pretty good yesterday, as I told you they would have on our Go With The Flow program that runs on Fridays, I do think that, maybe Tennessee, I've got to see more out of them. I was not impressed with what they did. Granted, it was on the road at Pittsburgh, but they've got to come to Athens. I'll see it when I believe it with Kentucky. Kentucky's going to win 10 games this year, but with the way that they play, they do not have the athletes to stay with Georgia. And I think it's going to be exactly like every other time Georgia plays Kentucky, where, Kentucky tries to keep it close and Georgia just blows things open. And then it sort of gets slowed down later on in the game. Kevin Flutie, at this point, the thing Tennessee has that's going for it is their style of play is so different that it does make it difficult to prepare for. But we know that Georgia has been trying to acclimate itself to that tempo over in the preseason. We know they're going to spend some time on it during the off week. And so while, yes, I think of the opponents left on Georgia's regular season schedule, that's probably the answer. I'm still not that worried about Tennessee. If I'm setting a line for that game today, it's probably Georgia 24.5. Maybe it gets down to 20, depending on how Tennessee looks these next couple of weeks. But with the way we have seen Georgia play right now, there is not a team on the regular season schedule that I believe can challenge them. Let's see. Let's scroll down here. I am seeing a lot of Stetson for Heisman chatter buzz. I think through the first 3 games of the season, he is right up there. In my opinion, if he keeps doing what he is doing and playing as well as he has not turned the ball over yet this season. Another 3 touchdown performance yesterday, 283 yards passing so far yesterday. If he keeps playing the way he does and Georgia is unbeaten and wins the SEC, I'd feel pretty good about saying he's going to win the Heisman, just with the way we know that award works and the sort of narrative building that goes along with it and comes with it. Here's a guy who is a walk-on at one point, a guy that most of the fan base did not want to be the quarterback. And then from there turns into what is clearly already one of the best players in college football this season and has elevated his story so much so that, he goes out there and delivers a rather flawless performance yesterday while puking during the game. I think it speaks to the very real chance that he has of being a Heisman Trophy winner. Georgia has not had a Heisman Trophy finalist since 1992. That was Garrison Hurst. He came in 3rd that year. If this Georgia team is 12-0 going into the SEC championship game and Stetson Bennett continues to play well, I feel very good in saying Stetson will at least be in New York. And if they're able to win the SEC championship game, in all likelihood beating Alabama, I think it's going to be very hard to make a case against Bennett, unless, say, a Caleb Williams gets USC to the playoff, a CJ Stroud just puts up absolutely bonkers numbers. But he already had a very big showcase against Notre Dame, and that did not go great that day for Stroud. So I am going to be very interested. I will say, obviously there's a lot of time left, but with the fact that he's a repeat, he won last year, I find it hard to believe that Bryce Young is going to win the Heisman Trophy this year, just given the way that Alabama offense has performed so far this year. I know he scored 63 points yesterday, but they did have 2 interceptions. Justin Farmer, yeah, and you have legitimate NFL people saying this. Jim Nagy, I would not be surprised to see Stetson Bennett get an invite down there to the Senior Bowl. Trent Dilfer compared him to Chase Daniel, as well as maybe a little bit of Tony Romo in there. I think if Stetson keeps playing, and keeps improving, there's no reason why to expect that he can't be an NFL player. He has kept getting better throughout his time. I think you've even seen improvements from where he was at the end of last season to this season. And I think that speaks to just the player that Stetson has turned into. Again, not saying he's going to be a first round pick, not saying he's going to be an NFL starter, but with the way that he has played, and if he keeps playing this way, I think he absolutely has an NFL future, which if you had told me this a year ago would have seemed rather wild. Let's see. Let's maybe do 1 or 2 more questions. Yeah, Roxanne, I think everyone agrees with this. As cool as a Heisman Trophy would be, as nice as that one weekend in New York might be for Stetson, I think everyone, Stetson himself, would say, I'll bypass the Heisman if you tell me we're getting another national championship. So would absolutely agree with that sentiment there. Let's see. Maybe 1 or 2 more comments here before heading on out for the night. Yeah, Jerry Dogs fan, I think this is a really good point. With what we've seen from Georgia so far, they're the only teams that can beat themselves. And, that involves playing poorly. Maybe there's a bad weather game. They have not gotten explosive runs from the running backs yet. And if there is a torrential downpour, like say there was in the 2019 season against Kentucky, maybe you wonder a little bit there. But through 3 games, Georgia does not have a turnover. They are +6 in the turnover margin. And granted, a reporter who shall remain nameless, who's a good friend of mine, did potentially jinx Georgia in the no turnover aspect. They have played excellent football on the offensive side of the ball so far this year. And to Jerry's point, the only team beating Georgia right now that I see in the regular season would be Georgia themselves. Let's see. So Jack Marino, this might be the last comment we're going to go on because it is a good one, and I'm going to hopefully have a story on Marcus or related to Marcus this week. I've been really impressed with what I've seen out of Marcus Rosemy-Jacksain so far this season. Not posting big statistical receiving production numbers, but if you watch situationally the way they trust him, the way they go to him, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksain is pretty clearly a big part of this offense. He had 2 big third down catches in his first 2 games of the season. I believe he had another catch yesterday. Has been an awesome blocker, even obviously going back to the national championship game last season. And he is a guy who not as quick twitch as, say, A.D. Mitchell is, but he does a lot of important things for this offense. And in big moments, Rosemy-Jacksain is absolutely going to be on the field for this Georgia team this year. He is absolutely a valued guy and a guy that I think most Georgia fans recognize what he does. But I hope this week that I'm able to shed a little bit more light on what exactly he brings to this team and why the coaching staff loves him in the manner in which they do, even though he is not, say, as productive as a Ladd McConkey or an A.D. Mitchell. He is a guy that Georgia absolutely needs to have out there if it wants to continue making big plays like it did on Saturday against South Carolina. So that is going to do it for us here tonight. My name is Connor Riley. We're going to do this every Sunday night at 7:30. We have winners and losers to top things off. We're doing a new thing, the deep shot. It is sort of a wider take on where things are. I think my first deep shot was Brock Bowers, by the time he finishes, is going to be the best player to ever play for Kirby Smart, better than Roquan, better than Nick Chubb, better than Jordan Davis, better than Nakobe Dean. I think in terms of being a pure football player, I don't think that I have seen someone quite as good as he is, and he's only a sophomore who has started 3 games in said sophomore season to this point. We do our interview medleys, and then obviously we come in here, do a little Q&A for 10, 15 minutes. So this has been a lot of fun. Kent State this week, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's a home game, which is exciting to look forward to. But if you are watching from home, it is going to be a little bit more difficult for you to find. You're going to have to be streaming the game. It'll be on SEC Network Plus or ESPN Plus. I will have a post for you guys on Friday in terms of how to get that game and watch it. But I understand that it's going to be a struggle for some people out there. Obviously, the game not being on regular television. Kent State, Georgia's a 42-point favorite. This is a game they should win easily. Kent State did play Oklahoma earlier this season. That was a 33-3 final score there. So if you want to maybe do some score comparison there, but I expect Georgia to come out, play really strong football once again, and really look forward to continuing to establish the standard that they live up to each and every week here in Athens. So you'll have Brandon Adams tomorrow morning on Dog Nation Daily, Mike Griffith on Monday nights with On the Beat. You'll have Jeff Sintel on Wednesdays. We got a special announcement coming on Tuesday this week. I think a lot of people are going to be really excited about that. So make sure to tune in to Dog Nation Daily on Tuesday morning for said announcement. My name is Connor Riley. This has been Connor in Coverage. We will see you guys next Sunday night, recapping Kent State, looking ahead to Missouri, talking more Georgia football at large. It's been a lot of fun, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great Sunday evening.